hello everyone, back tuning in to today's video. We're going to do JMA Friday today, having a look at the weather for the coming month with the Japanese and CFS B2 models. So we've got this cold weather coming up over the weekend, and particularly biting next week. I think it'll be around Monday to Thursday next week that the proper wedge of Arctic air will be moving down across the country. We may update Snow Watch this evening just to see what the snow potential is over the next week or so. I think really won't get next week. It's going to be more a case of nowcasting, but we can have a look at the GFS model in terms of its precipitation type forecast just to see where things are trending with the wintry potential with all of this. Mainly in the north, mainly over high ground. So we know we've got this cold weather coming over the coming week, and we'll have extend out beyond that into the month ahead, which is going to take us up to into the second half of May. And we'll see whether this cold weather is set to relent as we get through into the start of the new month. It's going to be quite an interesting update. But before I get on with that, just to say about the ads that goes over this. So there's links to articles on all the pages. Have a browse through the widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. And thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads on most of the pages which open up the content when you watch them. They'll close back up again, and it does help to pay for our website. So thanks so much for getting involved. And thanks for doing that. We're going to start off with 500 millibar heights from the JMA model. These are broken down into weekly periods, and then we'll have a look at the corresponding temperature and precipitation numbers that go bad, and then we'll have a look at CFS-V2 and see what that model is showing. So we'll start off with the Northern Hemisphere view for the coming month from the JMA model, and the first week that we started with is the week that we're in, the 22nd through to the 29th of April. As you know, with these charts, orange and yellow extrapolates to high pressure, and blue extrapolates to low pressure. So for the coming week, we've got this big blocking feature here out to the west and the north of the UK, through the Atlantic, going up towards Greenland, extending back into blocking over top of the pole, and then underneath it we've got this deep trough of low pressure around the UK and to the east. It means that the jet stream is going something like that, and it places us on the cold side of the jet within that trough. So it's going to be an unusually cold week coming up. There'll certainly be a risk of significant night frost. There could be some wintry showers as well. Daytime temperatures will be around 5 or 6 degrees colder than average. It's going to be really quite a unusually cold week coming up for this final week of April. As we go through into week 2, this will take us from the 29th of April through to the 6th of May. Well, very similar conditions, really. The blocking is still there over top of the pole and extending down into the central part of the Atlantic as well. We've still got this trough around and to the east of the UK. We're still being placed on the cold side of the jet, so the jet's going rather like that again. And it's still unsettled and pretty cool conditions, really, extending through into the opening days of May as well. No real sign of a significant change there. And we go through to week 3 and week 4, this taking us from the 6th through to the 20th of May. And although, of course, we're going further out, so the signal is weakening, overall it's still the same sort of idea. So we've still got the yellow colours here around Greenland, which tie back into the top of the North Pole, just here. We've still got the trough of low pressure with the blue colours underneath it around the UK and Western Europe. Presumably, the jet stream is still going south. As I say, the colours have weakened because we've gone further out and we've got a weaker signal here. But overall, it's same idea, same setup, going well into May, which is ridging and blocking to the north and the west, and a trough of low pressure underneath it that could feed down some pretty cool air from the north and the northeast. So we may well be looking at quite a cold May here, certainly going up towards the middle part of the month anyway. So that's the Northern Hemisphere view, looking down from the pole. This is the mid-latitude and tropical view. So where we are on this chart, and again it's JMA, but where we are on this chart is up in the far top right hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it. So this is sort of the tropics here, that's the tropical view, and then to the north of that we've got the Northern Hemisphere, and then to the south of it we've got the Southern Hemisphere, and you can't see the poles. We've just looked at the North Pole, of course, with the North Pole view, but the poles are up here. So the North Pole is there off the chart, and again the South Pole, which is down here, is off the chart. So that's where the South Pole is. So that just explains a little bit about what you're looking at with that chart. So where we are on this chart is that for the coming week, again, this is the 22nd to 29th, starting off 500 millibar heights. We know we've got this trough of low pressure around the UK and across much of Central Europe as well. We've got the ridging out to the west and the north. It does extend back into the poles. It means we're on the cold side of the jet, rather like that. The temperature anomaly, then, you expect it to be coming out colder than average, and that's what it's showing, a really significantly colder than average week coming up for the coming week. And the precipitation, it's not too bad, actually. It's a bit drier than average, and that's very often the case. Although we are close to the trough of low pressure, because the air is quite chilly, it doesn't hold as much moisture, so generally will tend to come out drier than average when the weather goes colder than average, except in summer, and then it makes very little difference. We go through to week 2. Let's go from the 29th of April through to 6th of May with this one. Again, it's very similar, really. The trough low pressure is around the UK. The ridge is out to west. We're still on the cool side of the jet. Once again, the temperature anomaly, therefore, is coming out colder than average through that opening week of May. And the precipitation, this one's a bit wetter, actually. So not only is it significantly cooler than average to start May, it's also going a bit wetter than average as well. And then we go through to week 3 and week 4, going from the 6th through to the 20th of May. You can't really see the blocking because it's off the chart on this particular view. It's up here somewhere, but we have got the blocking still up there. We've got the trough of low pressure centred over the country with those blue colours. It means that going through into the middle part of May, no improvement with the temperatures really still coming out colder than average. And for the precipitation, again, that's coming out generally wetter than average. So it does look a really dismal month going up to the middle part of May with the JMA model. It looks like we're going to have cooler than average temperatures for the next month. And not only that, it looks as though we're going to have above average rainfall. Although we start off fairly dry, it looks like we are trending wetter into May as well. So really quite a poor month coming up from the JMA. Let's see how the CFS V2 is seeing things. So again, these are 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods, looking down from the North Pole. The first week is going to take us from the 22nd to 28th of April. Almost identical to the JMA. There's all of this blocking up to the north and the west of the country. We've got this corresponding trough to the east, the jet stream doing something like that. So being placed on the cold side of the jet, and we're opening the door to this Arctic blast that we've got coming through next week. It's going to be a cold and pretty unsettled opening to May, end of April, opening to May. So we go through to the next week period. We're saying this from the 29th of April through to the 5th of May. Again, very similar to the JMA, but trough of low pressure still centred there across many central and western parts of Europe. And then we've got all of this blocking up to the north. Look how much red we've got over the top of the pole. That's very, very extensive blocking. If we'd had that in January, my word, it would have been very, very cold. So loads of blocking up to the north, trough of low pressure to the south of it. And of course, we're entrenching, or we're feeding in cold air into that trough via the blocking that's pushing the cold air out of the North Pole. Week 3, going from the 6th through to 12th of May, looking like this. A little bit different. What's going on here is that we've still got the signal for blocking to the north, so we've still got plenty of red and orange around Greenland and over top of the pole. We've still got this trough to the east of the country just there. The difference is that we've got a bit of a ridge building across Spain and Portugal. So the flow is going slightly more into the Atlantic. I think that would be a bit milder. Wouldn't necessarily be running away with the idea it's particularly warm. It probably isn't, but it probably turns a bit milder there as we go through into the second week of May. And then finally, week 4 looking like this. Still hints of northern blocking Still the trough generally to the east of us, and this ridge around southwestern parts of Europe. So again, I think the jet stream is probably doing something like that. It should be a bit milder there as going into the middle of May. There's a discrepancy between the JMA and the CFS V2, but I think the CFS is turning the flow more towards the Atlantic there as we go into the middle part of May. Albeit still generally quite cool, because what we need to do really to generate proper warmth is actually to take this ridge into central parts of Europe, and then we start to draw up a southerly flow. We're not drawing up a southerly flow, we are bringing the air from the Atlantic, so it should be a bit milder, but still probably from a fairly cool source in the Atlantic, something like that. Let's have a look at the temperatures then, and very cool temperature anomalies, cold temperature anomalies really, for the coming week. Look at this, we're in those blue colours. You don't often see that on these charts. Many parts of Europe as well in those blue colours. This is temperature anomalies going under 3 Celsius below average, probably around 3 to 4 degrees below average. There's the colour scale just there. So a very, very cool, if not cold, week coming up for the coming week. Week 2, going from the 29th of April to the 5th of May. This one looks generally cooler or colder than average as well. And then week 3, it is still cooler than average, but this is when pressure is beginning to rise down across Spain and Portugal. So although it is cooler than average, it's not as cold, you see what I mean, as the first 2 weeks. So still cooler than average, but slightly less cold, going from the 6th through to 12th of May. And then we go out to the middle part of May, and it's same idea, 13th to the 19th, still looking a bit below average. So no sign of anything especially warm, but not as cold as week 1 and week 2. And the reason that happens, as say, the flow is going slightly more Atlantic based, albeit not from a particularly warm source in the Atlantic Ocean. Precipitation anomalies look like this for the coming week. 22nd to 28th of April comes out drier than average. There will be wintry showers though. Week 2, in agreement with the JMA, this one turns a bit wetter as well. So 29th of April to 5th May, covering the bank holiday, of course. That one looks a bit wetter than average, especially in the north and west. Week 3, we lose the signal, so we go back to sort of average, and I think it's just that the model is tending to lose the signal a little bit. Of course, we might get average rainfall through this period, but it's often what you find in week 3 and week 4, precipitation anomalies from this model, that the anomalies just sort of weaken and it loses the signal really for week 3 and week 4. I would suspect we'll probably have slightly drier conditions in those final 2 weeks, probably because the high pressure is building across Spain and Portugal, which should send the jet stream, well, it's coming off the Atlantic, should send the jet stream into a northwest-southeast trajectory. But it looks like we've got a pretty dismal month coming up. There's no sign of anything especially warm for the next month. We're looking at some really cold conditions for the time of year. I have to keep caveating that. Really cold conditions for the next week. It looks like it's going to stay pretty cool then as we go into May. No sign of anything especially warm. It just turns a little bit less cold as we get through to the middle part of the month. And precipitation, very variable. Nothing especially wet probably, but there will be some rain and possibly even some wintry conditions coming through at times. We will update Snow Watch this evening just to have a quick look at what the snow potential is next week. I say I think it's going to be more of a nowcast scenario next week to see what's happening outside your window. But there will be some wintry potential. We'll have a look at that with Snow Watch this evening. Right, it's weekend forecast tomorrow. Come back for that. Come back to Snow Watch this evening. Tomorrow we'll also have a look at El Nino. So it's all happening at the website. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.